Hey, hey, hey. You know what? I think I would love to have the Fat Albert theme as the opener to this show. Welcome, everyone, to the No Name College Football Podcast, College Football Show. I am Sunny Cadwallader, better known as Cad Chica in the world of social media. I am back, and I'm not alone again because I talked my friend, Nick Paulenich, to joining me again. Hey, Nick, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, Sonny? I'm doing well. We're talking college football, so it's always good.
We are. I twisted his arm. I begged him. I pleaded with him. I threatened him. I have Nick. Did I say? I think I said your name wrong last time, didn't I, Nick? I said it Paulenich, and it's Paulenich, right?
Yeah, you got it right this time, Paulenich. I can't remember the last time, but yes, Paulenich. It wouldn't be the first time so that somebody has said it wrong, so no biggie. So
I think we're in the same boat, my friend. Cadwallader is a huge mouthful, and we have a fumble in the game. The game that I'm talking about is we're recording this podcast while Auburn and Kansas State is going on. Auburn punted on their first series, luckily, after a muffed snap, and Kansas State fumbled, and so now Auburn's taken over, and looks like they're about in the red zone. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about college football. Last time we got together, Nick, it was 2 weeks ago, prior to you heading to watch Ohio State and Virginia Tech, and we all know how that game ended now. I was asking Nick a little bit before the show what if it was like a mausoleum in the stadium. And Nick, tell me your impressions from we'll get to their victory last week, but tell me your impressions from that game, what you saw from your seat in the stadium.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, it got really loud. I mean, they tied it up 21-21 in the fourth quarter, and at that point, it is a tremendous atmosphere. A night game, 108,000, but also but it can also get very quiet very quickly, and that's what happened. Basically, in the final, I think 10 minutes, JT Barrett the offensive line really struggled. He got sacked six times in the final 9 minutes.
Yes, it's like every time I turn my head to look at the game, he's down on the ground.
Yeah, he really struggled, and one of the things they had talked about post-game was they weren't used to seeing the Bear front, the defensive front like the old Bears had played, and they struggled with that. The offensive line struggled with it, and all night they didn't run the ball well. They averaged less than 3 yards a carry. They had a big drop in the end zone late in the second quarter. They had 2 missed field goals. They had a lot of miscues. The other things were during that game they could not stop Virginia Tech on third down. In the first half, Virginia Tech was 7 of 10 on third down, so that just kept the defense on the field. And on the flip side, Ohio State was just struggling to convert they were 4 for 16 on third down. So it was rough if you're a Buckeye fan.
It seemed like they started the season. I mean, we talked about it last time we were on the show. Obviously, their first game going against Navy, triple option, they struggled, and I don't know that I expected them to struggle like they did against Virginia Tech, but they struggled against Navy, struggled and lost to Virginia Tech, who wound up going, following it up with the clunk. I shouldn't say a clunker against East Carolina, because if you watch that game, especially toward the end, that's a resilient East Carolina team, even though they had lost the previous week to South Carolina by 10, who themselves had lost in week 1, got blown out of the stadium by Texas A&M. So it just goes to, as I was sitting here prepping for the show, it just goes to show you how you cannot predict anything. Even though we have all these rankings preseason, you cannot predict anything to what like you said in the first show, you can't really do rankings until first weekend in October, because there's just so much still getting to know, trying to work out those struggles, which it looks like I mean, granted, it wasn't the greatest of opponents, but did it seem like to you that Ohio State worked through those struggles last week?
I mean, you're right. I mean, obviously, you're beating Kent State, but I think that's what you're supposed to do: beat them 66-0. If they'd come out of that game, they beat them 27-10, then you probably have a lot more questions. But he didn't get sacked. Barrett throws 6 touchdown passes. He spreads the ball around, which is what Meyer said he wants him to do: be a distributor. 11 different guys caught the ball. They had their first 100-yard rusher, I think, in Curtis Samuel. And they ran for over 300 yards, which they had really struggled on the ground. And the defense had tightened up. So they'll get a good test coming up against Cincinnati with Gunnar Kiel. He's a good quarterback. If you remember, he was at Notre Dame for a cup of coffee. He was the number 1 drop back passer when he came out, and then kind of was all over the place for a while. He was at LSU, Notre Dame, but he's kind of settled in at Cincinnati. Threw 6 touchdowns against Toledo last week. So they'll get a firmer test with him as far as the pass defense. But I think there was a lot more positive things to look at. At least it's a lot better going to a bye week with a 66-0 win.
Now, what did you see from the offensive line? Because, I mean, from those first 2 games, from the first 2 games, it seemed like the offensive line was the biggest. They had the most struggles, at least from my perspective. What did you see from them last week? Did they look like more of a cohesive unit last week?
I think that was Kent came out and tried doing the same thing as Virginia Tech, coming out with the bear front. Obviously, they don't have the same type of athlete as Virginia Tech, but then also this time, I think Ohio State was a lot more prepared for it as well.
Right.
So I think that helped as well. But I think they're also learning to play together now, replacing 4 or 5 starters. So I think as the season progresses, they should become more cohesive, and I think that showed. So that between that and being more prepared.
Right. We were talking before the show, again, just because we like to talk. We were doing our show before the show, actually.
The pre-show.
Yeah. Continuing on in the Big Ten, one of the other favorites, Michigan State, they had a bye last week, but they played after our last show, our first show, they went to Oregon, and I was telling Nick that I watched the game up until a point when I had to go do something else, and that was when Michigan State was to me, it felt like Michigan State was imposing their will. I come back, turn on the TV. Hello, Oregon. It talked about imposing their will. Was it I think it was 46-24 was the 46-27 was the final score. Oregon over Michigan State. I still think Michigan State is, although Ohio State won last week, I still think Michigan State is the cream of the crop in the Big Ten. Correct me if I'm wrong, because you're my Big Ten expert. But they head back. They had last week off. They head back into this weekend's games. Where do you stand with Michigan State right now after what happened at Oregon?
No, I don't think that, I wouldn't take anything away from them from going out and losing. I mean, that's a tough environment, going out to Autzen Stadium and losing. So I obviously they got beat. They gave up a lot of points, but I especially the way that right now the Big Ten has looked, I don't think that takes anything out of them. I mean, I've seen Ohio State. I've watched. I still think Michigan State has a really good defense. Ohio State's their young offense is gonna have to continue to mature, and obviously their offensive line is going to have to be at a whole different level to be able to tackle that defense for Michigan State. And to me, they have. They're just to me. And the other thing that going into that game before they meet, I mean, they'll meet in East Lansing. And the next, speaking of byes, Michigan State has a bye the week before they play Ohio State, which that'll be nice for that'll be nice for them. They'll have a week to prep as well. So I mean,
they basically have two buys the next 2 weeks. I mean, they host Eastern Michigan, and then Wyoming comes in for a paycheck the following weekend before they hit up. Wow, they have 3 straight home games. Goodness, yeah. Eastern Michigan's this weekend. Wyoming comes in for their paycheck the following weekend. Nebraska comes into town on that first weekend in October before they have another bye at Purdue. So they have a pretty decent road for themselves before they even start thinking about, Ohio State or Penn State or Michigan or anybody like that. So, you're right. You're right.
The coast is pretty clear right now.
Yeah, basically. So even if they are they could be a one-loss Big Ten team, and they could still sneak into that 14 playoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think I was hearing a lot of the broadcasts that the Big Ten is out, you can eliminate them. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen by the end of the season. I mean, we've already seen the Pac-12. We saw USC, go down last week.
Overrated.
Yeah, I mean, and they beat Stanford, so Stanford has a loss. UCLA has, injury issues now at the quarterback. I mean, so there's a lot of, we have a lot of season to play, I guess, in short. So, I mean,
it was just one bad Saturday for
it was
the Big Ten. Anybody else in the Big Ten standing out to you, or that you're kind of keeping an eye on, or you're just saying good night to them, goodbye?
I think it's interesting now to kind of see where James Franklin will take Penn State now that they've been reinstated into the postseason. Because I don't think this year. I mean, I think he can get them into a bowl. I mean, they obviously have enough bowl bids for the conference. People have to go. So, right. But I think he's doing already a tremendous job. He was doing a tremendous job recruiting. Now he has this lifted. I think, over the next year or so, he's definitely going to have a team that's going to be to reckon with, and I think Christian Hackenberg is definitely a top-notch quarterback. So it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on them. I don't think they're going to win the division because they're in the same division with Michigan State and Ohio State. I mean, that's a tough division, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get one of those wins, against an Ohio State or somebody like that. It wouldn't shock me either.
Yeah. You mentioned injury, USC, I tried to sneak that in. They were tremendously overrated, and it showed against Boston College. What was it, over 400 yards rushing against USC? That's neither here nor there. But you also mentioned all of the injuries. Brett Hundley went out somehow. Neuheisel pulled it out for UCLA against a Texas team that I don't know where their depth is, but it's not in Texas. No. UCLA is dealing with the injury. Arizona State, my team, Taylor Kelly injured his foot. They're off this weekend, but they will be matched up against that UCLA team on Thursday, September 25th. This is my Pac-12 segment to say there's not a whole lot of great games this coming weekend for the Pac-12. Washington is handing out a paycheck to Georgia State. Oregon State, San Diego State, that might be, I almost made that my sleeper game, but I chose not to. Hawaii will be at Colorado. I don't think Hawaii is going to do much there. Oregon is coming into my neck of the woods at Washington State, so that's like hello, goodbye, Oregon, see you later, have fun. Washington State hosting that game. So I mean, there's not a whole lot with the Pac-12, but there is a Pac-12 Big Ten matchup that we were talking about. This is going to be my sleeper game. I know I said we were going to talk about sleeper games at the end, but it's a good segue. Utah will be at the Big House. Utah is 2-0. They've only, now granted that's early season games, Big Sky, Idaho State, a Fresno State team that I think is in a rebuilding mode this year. Michigan, 2-1. They'll be heading into their Big Ten schedule next week. They have wins over at App State, Appalachian. How is it pronounced, Nick?
I think it depends on what part of the country you're from.
Well, you're a lot closer to that part of the country than I am. They beat Miami of Ohio last week, but sandwiched in there, they have that loss to Notre Dame. You live in Michigan. Not that you're privy to anything that's going on with the Wolverines, but how do you see this game playing out? I don't know how much you know about Utah, but they've continued to progress each year from my perspective. What are your thoughts?
I think there's some concern about Utah. Utah usually has a good defensive line. I mean, if there's one thing over the years, I mean, they continue to pump guys in the NFL, and there was even in the paper today, they were talking about that's concerned. Like last week, granted it was an outmanned Miami team that they ran for 276 yards against. Well, they're going to get a little better test against Utah with their defensive line. So I think that'll be kind of like the matchup. I mean, there's a lot of concern. I think one of the big storylines here right now is the Brady Hoke story right now, because the team is, obviously the Notre Dame game, they got blown out. Nobody is really excited about the Miami or the App State wins.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of fan apathy issues. There was actually a couple things on the internet, how many tickets you can get, which is usually never the case for Michigan. How many tickets are available for these games right now. So those have been kind of some of the outerlying storylines for the game. But I think on the field, I think that'll be the big thing. I think Utah, they're not, I don't think, as good as Notre Dame, but I think they're definitely better than the other two teams. So this will be definitely an interesting test. Both the other times they've played Michigan in the last 10 years, they've given them good games. So, I mean, obviously those are different teams, but I don't think they're going to come in here and be intimidated by any means.
The cheapest ticket on StubHub for that game is right around $24. I don't know, is that good? Is that bad? Or do they usually go for higher? Do you know?
Usually higher.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there was a guy. Now, granted, this is an Ohio State site, so obviously, we're going to preface like the person's agenda there, because obviously that's. But he was showing earlier this week on Twitter. He bought 12 rows to show how many seats were available. So, not bought 12, but like put them in the queue to like he could buy 12 rows for the game.
Right.
So
an Ohio State fan with no bias or bias? No,
not
at all.
But
not at all.
No, but I mean, this should be a fun game. I think it should be definitely one of the more entertaining games of the week. So.
Yeah, Utah ranks 3rd overall in points, looks like, 25th overall in rushing, 29th overall in passing yards, but their defense, as of right now, points against, they're only 44th overall, so it will be a good test. Let me ask you this question, because you mentioned Brady Hoke. On a scale of 1 to HE double toothpicks, 10 equaling HE, heck, how hot is his seat?
I think it's still okay, but because I think he's going to get off to an okay. I mean, if he loses this week, I think it gets hotter. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd still say it's probably a 5. Now, lose to Michigan State and Ohio State again, that gets pretty hot. And then the Jim Harbaugh talk starts to heat up.
Okay. Has that swirled around last year too?
Yeah, the Jim Harbaugh talk swirls around. That seems to, whenever the Brady Hoke talk, whenever he seems to find himself with where the fan base gets a little disgruntled, Jim Harbaugh starts to come down as kind of like he's like kind of the dream candidate to roll into Ann Arbor.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Has it been the same athletic director through Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez and I mean, has it been the same AD since Lloyd Carr left?
No, it has not been.
Oh, okay.
So this is actually a new one, and but
It's not Brady Hoke's higher.
no, it is Brady Hoke's hire.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he's been at least publicly supportive,
Okay.
but when you start, there's also he's a former CEO of Domino's, and he's very marketing savvy. His name's David Brandon, and one of the things is when you start not filling seats in 100,000 plus stadium, there's money, donors, and that stuff starts to add up. So then you connect the dots, and then and somebody somebody like a Jim Harbaugh, or in the past Les Miles would energize the people.
The personality, the charisma can sell the most loyal college football fans sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so I gave my sleeper, Utah, Michigan, which I didn't think we were going to talk about that much, but we wound up doing it anyways. I'm sorry about that. What's your sleeper game?
Well, staying with the Utah theme, we're going to go Virginia, BYU.
We've got a Utah thing going on today or something.
Yeah,
they're going to love us there.
Yeah, we're going to be huge. Well, I used to live there, so there you go.
Oh, so that's what this is about. You've got relatives, or they've got something on you, Nick, that I don't know about?
No, it was strictly work, no relatives. But I picked because BYU's off to a 3-0 start. They're in both polls this week. And this is probably their last big, they play Virginia, who last time we talked we were kind of surprised when UCLA struggled against them, and now lo and behold, they come off the win against Louisville. It looks like they have their defense is, I mean, they're holding teams to 84 yards rushing. BYU, meanwhile, is averaging nearly 260 yards rushing. They got one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country in Taysom Hill. And this is BYU's last big chance to kind of make, I don't know if you call it a statement win, but when you kind of look down the rest of their schedule, this is probably the last one against a power conference that they have. I think looking at their schedule, they can easily run the table, but I think they'll fall short of probably a playoff consideration, but doesn't mean that they can't get into a major bowl. But I definitely think that this is a game. Virginia traveling out to Provo, that's a tough place to play. So it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on this game.
Yeah, they follow it up. They'll have a bye before they have in years past, Utah State has been a pretty strong challenge for BYU. We'll see how well the Aggies do against them this year. They have Boise State at they play at Boise State towards the end of October, and then they end the season at Cal. And we don't know a whole lot about Cal yet. They are improved from this year, but time will tell between now and the end of the season what kind of a game that'll be for BYU. But you're right; they could very easily run that table, and it will be interesting to see how the college football playoff committee will look at BYU come voting time, if that does come to pass for them. So yeah, good call.
They'll call for an expansion to 8 teams.
Well, I'm sure there are people probably already doing that as we speak. It's 4 minutes left as of right now in the first quarter. Auburn 3, Kansas State nothing. Like I said, that's a huge game. I think I would rather, personally I'd rather watch this than NFL any day of the week, but that's a pretty good game for a Thursday night. But our other games of the week, I have Oklahoma at West Virginia, Clemson, of course, at Florida State. Are those your games of the week, or what else do you got on?
Well, I mean, the Clemson Florida State's gonna be interesting, especially no Jameis Winston in the first half, so that'll definitely be a big storyline, college game day there. And then last year, Florida State, that was kind of the game that kind of sprung them when they beat Clemson 51-14. So that'll be, and also the winner of this game has won the division. This has been the winner of the division for 5 seasons in a row. So it's
a lot of the ACC. It's just the ACC.
But so that should be interesting. So that I think definitely the Oklahoma seems to be back with their defense. The defense seems pretty nasty, but West Virginia, they'll be matching up with Clint Trickett, who's thrown for over 1,200 yards in the first 3 games. So that should be kind of fun to see those guys square off. I also had Mississippi State and LSU. Speaking of kind of nasty defenses,
Yeah.
LSU hasn't given up. Now, granted, I know this is Sam Houston State and Louisiana Monroe, so I'm not going to go overboard. But they haven't let a team hit the end zone since the Wisconsin game. So that, I think that's still kind of impressive. Almost 10 full quarters without giving up points, regardless of who you're playing, is pretty amazing. So and Mississippi State's got themselves a pretty impressive dual threat quarterback in Dak Prescott as well. So that's a pretty interesting game, I think, as well, to kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, you're right. They rank 11th overall in terms of points against. So that good call, Nick. See, this is why I have you on the show, because you know more about this stuff than I do. That is a great call. That Oklahoma West Virginia game, that really is my number 1 game of the week. Yeah, this game tonight could turn into a doozy, but I will be anxious to see how well Dana Holgorsen has his team ready for Oklahoma. They played really, really well against Alabama a couple weeks back, but I would not be surprised if West Virginia upsets the Sooners. But we'll see. Lots of fun games, I think, even this weekend. Yeah. So what else is on your mind in terms of college football? Are you starting to dig into some of the individual players, because you are the NFL draft expert extraordinaire?
Yeah, I'm starting to kind of look at some of the players. That's always fun. Starting to kind of, I know the last time we had talked I hadn't, but I'm starting to kind of look at some of the players. I saw today, as a matter of fact, speaking of just kind of looking, it's been interesting to kind of follow after Winston's suspension, how a lot of people have already, I know this is very early, dropping them on their boards already in September. So, yeah, I mean, I think one thing, just kind of already looking, it's going to be another strong draft for offensive linemen. Texas A&M's got another guy, Cedric Obey. I always pick the guys with the hardest names because that's what I like to do. But in the line of, they seem to just produce one every,
Yep.
Matthews. I mean, another one.
They're growing big down there.
Yeah, and so and out in Stanford, there's Andrus Peat. I mean, so I think we're gonna have another. I really like down in Alabama, Amari Cooper for wide receiver. So there's on the defensive side of the ball, kind of like Randy Gregory, which he was injured in the second game, but it'll be interesting because we're having a flashback game he'll be playing in the Miami of Florida-Nebraska game this week, as we have like a throwback to the national championship games. so kind of digging in. It's just kind of interesting. Anything that looks like a ranking board right now will look completely different.
Of course. Like it'll be completely different up until the day before the draft actually happens, or maybe even an hour before the draft actually happens.
Yeah, it will and of course when somebody goes to Indianapolis and, throws up 225 pounds 20 times, that will totally change it, because even if they run for 3,000 yards in the season, it doesn't matter. So
yes. And I have to bring this up because Nick, if you remember on our last show, do you remember what my sleeper game was? I bet you don't remember, do you?
No, I didn't. Oh, no, I did. No, yes, I do. Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington.
And Washington. Yes, I do remember that.
And that was like the game of the weekend.
I did see the score, and I thought of you. I didn't obviously see the game, but I did see the score. It was like what, like 38-34, I think?
59-52.
Wow.
Over about 1,100 yards almost 1,100 yards of total offense between the two. There was only 2 turnovers, and that was the undoing of Eastern Washington, because they really had a chance to win. They had a chance to win that game, just like they did a few years ago at Husky Stadium. So I just had to throw that in there before we finished our show.
Well, it's a good call. So maybe everybody should be watching the West Virginia, and the Utah-Michigan game this week.
Well, I need to throw in one more sleeper game just because I know most people aren't going to be paying attention to it. But Eastern Washington goes to Montana State.
Well, that is a big FCS game, though.
It's a huge FCS. It's non-conference, but it is a huge FCS game. Eastern Washington is still ranked number 2. I forget. I think Montana State is in the top 10 of the FCS. Let's see. I know this makes for a great podcast show.
But what would we have done before the internet?
I know. Lord, after these last 2 weeks, Nick, of NFL stuff,
Yeah, see, that's the great thing about this show. We haven't talked about anything like that. I mean, if we were doing an NFL podcast, guess what we would have been talking about?
Well, we could have gone to Jameis Winston, and we could have gone to Dorial Beckham Green or Green Beckham. I don't care, whatever his name is. But we're not, because we want to just talk football. But anyways, if you need another sleeper game, that would be Eastern Washington at Montana State on Saturday, and we still need to come up with a name of the show if we even make it to a third show, Nick.
Yeah, I gotta get our creative minds here.
We'd like to talk football. We're not creative, are we? You're creative.
I'll think about it. I'll come up with one.
All right. If we make it to week 3, everyone, maybe we'll have a show by then. But, it would work into a good hashtag, No Name College Football NNCFB, hashtag NNCFB. We could always do that if we wanted to hashtag it, but whatever. Anyways, any last thoughts?
No, I think we covered everything. I think we got the weekend all covered. I think we hit all the good games, and I'm sure there's still going to be there's always some games that kind of sneak up upon us that we didn't cover, but we can always talk about them next time.
There we go. Thanks everyone for joining the No Name College Football show. No Name College Football hashtag. I don't know, whatever. If you've got an idea for a name out there, be sure to let us know. Nick, where can they contact you if they have an idea for the show?
Okay, you can contact me at Twitter at NPAULENICH, and you can find me at scarletandgame.com.
Yeah, that's a Buckeye site, all right. Scarlet and Game.
You don't have to be a Buckeye fan, and I don't. If you've read a couple of my last articles, they're not pro Buckeye. Trust me. So it's hard to write. It was real hard to write real pro. What were you going to write about pro Buckeye after the Virginia Tech game?
Well, the student section was really good for a while. Do you write for any other sites, Nick?
Not right now. Sometimes I do some pro football stuff, do the draft stuff for profootballguru.com with our friend Russell Baxter.
Yay, Russ.
We always give Russell a plug, not that he needs one.
I know. He just puts us to shame with his Twitter followers and all of that stuff, his views, all of that stuff. But we love Nick. We love Russ because he introduced us, and so now we get to hang out and talk college football, which we both love better than the NFL. So we'll keep Russ. We'll keep him. And I think it's still 3-0, or is it 7? No, I can't tell. Anyways, you can find me at Cad Chica. If you have the name for the show, don't call it a piece of crap, because it's not a piece of crap. We want legitimate, serious names for the show. If you have an idea, please let us know. I find me at Cad Chica, CADCHICA. You can also find me there on Facebook, Cad Chica Sports, Instagram at Cad Chica. Google Plus is definitely a good place to get in touch with me. Sunny Cadwallader, Cadwallader. See, Nick, mine's more of a mouthful than your last name. Um, and so just get a hold of us if you have a legitimate name for the show, and we will talk to y'all next time on the No Name College Football Show. Bye, everyone.